Hi, my name's Emma and let's talk spooky stuff. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about Lisey's story, which is now a TV show but is based on a book. I'm going to give you an overview, my personal thoughts, and then also kind of a clarification of the key differences between the book and the TV series. I'm really sorry if I mention movie at any time. I'm so used to saying movie that sometimes when I talk about TV series, I slip in a movie here and there, but I'm going to try and not do that. So definitely call me out in the comments. I have consumed so much Lisey content this week. I have done about 30 hours reading the book and watching the TV show, so it's all fresh and on my mind and I can't wait to get into it. I am going to be touching on some minor spoilers in this video, but don't worry, it's nothing you wouldn't have learned from the trailer. The reason for this is because there's some very intense themes in the TV show and the book, so it's kind of impossible for me to compare the two without talking about these major themes, but I'm not going to go into any character development, anything like that. Relationships I will touch on, acting I will touch on, but I'm not going to be talking about anything about the story unraveling. That's still completely up to you to find out. I'm not even going to really touch on the ending. I'm going to give you my opinion on it, but it's going to be completely spoiler free. It's nothing you wouldn't learn from the trailer, but I do think it's important you know that. I promise I'm not giving away any twists in this story. So it's best to start where it all began. Let's talk about the origin. Let's talk about the book. Lisey's story is a 2006 fantasy drama horror novel, which often gets lumped into the romance category as well. It's written by Stephen King, who on a Reddit Ask Me Anything said it's his favorite novel that he's ever written. He did later say in an interview that he doesn't have any favorites. He kind of retracted that statement because they're all like his children and you can't have favorites, but he said it was his favorite, so we're just going with that. And it really does make a lot of sense why it's his favorite and why it's so personal to him, and I'll explain that in this video. The book is about Lisey, who is a widower of a late, very famous horror writer called Scott Landon. The book begins many years after he has died and her packing up the home office where he used to work and finding all of these different articles and clippings and unpublished works, which gets her to reminisce on their life together and his story. When Lisey is reminiscing, she goes back into the past when she is being told by Scott about his life and also different events which kind of explain strange occurrences between the two. And this is where we get into fantasy. Scott also explains his abusive childhood with his father and his brother and a place where he goes called Booyah Moon. Booyah Moon is a fantasy land. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but what you do need to know for this video is there is a pool there that is healing. The book weaves in her reminiscing about their past and all of his history with a present danger. And this is an unhinged man who is a big fan of Scott Landon, and he is after Lisey because she has his unpublished works and he believes it's his right, his God-given right, to have them and to give them to the world. Stephen King got the inspiration for the novel when he was in hospital for a period of time with double pneumonia. When he came back to his home, he found that his wife had rearranged his studio. Finding some of his work packed up in boxes, it sparked this idea about his wife packing up his stuff after he was gone if he had died. Stephen King has said in the author's note of the book that the fantasy portion of the film is a metaphor for where artists go to draw inspiration from. Throughout the book, there's a lot of nods to different artists, poems, novels, and even songs. For example, in one chapter, a character says, "No one likes a clown at midnight," which is a throw to Lon Chaney and his famous quote, "There's nothing funny about a clown in the moonlight." Another example is Empty Devils, which is one of Scott Landon's most famous books in the book. This is inspired by the line from Shakespeare, which is "Hell is empty and all the devils are here." As I mentioned before, the book is based off the idea of him going home and seeing all of his work all packed up. So it's the curiosity behind how his wife would act with him being gone, and also the idea of looking into that and almost haunting his own home and his own life. A huge part of the book is the metaphor of trauma, where these kids who are abused by their father go to this place called Booyah Booyah Moon to escape. So the book really shows how pain can be turned into art, and it throws to all of these other artists that also drink from this same pool. They are going into their own fantasy lands, into their own versions of Booyah Moon to escape their demons, as I said, and then also to draw inspiration. King refers to the pool in the book as being very hypnotizing, so although this place is magical and is so powerful, it can also be quite dangerous. King says that this world is in fact very real to him. In the book, it's said that the pool is the pool of life, the cup of imagination, and people see it in different versions. Stephen King held onto the rights for Lisey's story for so long because this story was so close to his heart. As you can see, it's his own inspiration and he's talking about his own process and, of course, his wife in a way. He says the book's not about her, but, you know, there definitely touches on their relationship and that dynamic of being an author's wife. He really didn't want to give it away for adaptation, so this one is quite a different piece of work because Stephen King said that the only way he would ever see this messed up is for him to do it himself. So that's what he did. He didn't mess it up, but he took it into his own hands. In 2018, he watched season 2 of American Crime Story, The Assassination of Gianni Versace, and he was so compelled by its format that he decided to sit down and write his own Lisey story as a mini-series. He liked the idea of doing a streaming series because then it wasn't broken up by ads, but it was still longer than a film. This way, he didn't have to cut anything out that he really enjoyed. And so Stephen King wrote the play himself. The series was directed by Pablo Larraín, best known for directing Jackie. The show stars Julianne Moore as Lisey, Clive Owens as Scott Landon, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Joan Allen, Dane DeHaan, who is amazing, jaw-dropping, great performance. But my favorite was actually Michael Pitt, who plays Scott's father in the flashbacks to his childhood, and he is just terrifying, and it took me a while to even realize it was him. I love him in Funny Games, I love him in so much, but I really didn't even clue on it was him. He really gets into character, and it's just unnerving. 8 episodes long, the TV series is an Apple original, and it was released week by week, and currently the last episode has just aired, so it's all out now. I think it's really important to talk about how I consumed this Lisey content because usually it's the book or the TV show or the movie first, either way. But this one, I kind of went in and out. I actually watched all first 7 episodes of the TV show first. And then when I was waiting for the 8th episode to come out, I listened to the whole audiobook. And then I went back and finally finished the final episode. It was a little bit different to how I would traditionally do it, but I did it this way because, to be frank, I was waiting for episode 8 to come out. Now let's cut to the chase about the series because I have a lot to talk about. I was honestly thrown off by the entire story. It is clunky and it takes a long time for the strange pieces to come together because, as I said, it is a fantasy, and in the TV show there is so many odd visualizations that don't seem to fit in with the drama feel of the show. But at the same time, it's in no means a slow setup. The show flies straight out of the gate with this running theme, which is the bull. The bull is the thread that holds the whole story together. Pretty much the storyline, you're following Lisey, who has left clues by her husband. And that's what a bull is. It's a treasure hunt. Not to be confused with the pool. So it's a little bit confusing straight out the gate for her to be on a treasure hunt. I would have liked a little bit more of a setup. Obviously, the book has all of the time in the world, so it does set up the story very differently. And we do get an ease in to the bull hunt. In the book, it is slow and a little bit more well explained at the start, but I was really surprised after watching the TV show to jump into the book and realize it still had the same clunky elements because it is this strange mix of romance, fantasy, drama, horror, and it's just within this imagination where nothing really is meant to make sense. And I hope this makes sense to you, but these are not traditional elements, and I think this is what people really like about this story. It is straight from an imagination that doesn't have any constraints or boundaries. So Stephen King doesn't put it in any boundaries. He just lets it kind of flow out of him, and you can really feel that. Both the book and the movie live in an in-between of reality and full sci-fi horror, where at any moment a new element without much of a backstory at all can be introduced. It's kind of like a universe with no rules and no solid explanation. It's all about imagination. At the start, I was not sold on the TV show, and I've got a lot of DMs from you guys, especially on Instagram, saying that you were just not into it. And I felt that. I felt where you are. But it got up to episode 5, which is kind of poor to say that because it's halfway through, but episode 5 of this mini-series when I was actually hooked. This is when we learn about Scott's history and how he grew up with his abusive father. I found this to be much more chilling than most of the fantasy elements. It treads the line of asking the viewer, is this truly fact or fiction, as we're getting all of our information from Scott's memory as a young boy who was abused. There's parts of the show where I was wondering, are these just elaborate metaphors for trauma? But most of the storyline falls down if the fantasy or supernatural elements aren't true, and so it's a strange back and forth. I personally prefer realism head on, so if you are more of a fantasy nut, you'll probably get more out of the TV show as well. The book has a slower introduction into the hunting game, providing more of a background. I think that this is because in the book we start with Lisey going through her husband's works, and that's how she reminisces and goes back into the story, where the TV show is very different. The catalyst for this is her sister who hurts herself. And this is where I'm gonna have to get into a huge trigger warning. I was really surprised by this, and there is a content warning at the start of most of the episodes because of this. The show is very graphic, very, very dark and very graphic, and self-harm. There's a lot of self-harm that goes on in this, and I haven't even touched on that in this video because it's important within the context to understand where it comes from, but it is a big part of what the show is about. Again, the whole trauma, and it really goes into detail, and you see a lot of graphic content. I was quite surprised by this because although some movies or TV shows have this kind of content, usually it's one time and it's, you know, a very emotional scene. But in this TV show, I think it was up to like episode 4, and it was just constant all the time. There was a lot of, harm. So it's very intense. The TV show is super dark, and of course the book is, but it just shows it in a whole different way when it's so graphic, especially, you know, showing them going through the motions. The timelines are also a huge factor to consider when comparing the series to the book. The book transfers the viewer into the different timelines a little bit more seamlessly, and actually you feel like you're going into a different decade with her. They're able to do this simply by just saying 1988 Lisey or 2006 Lisey, where in the TV show it feels a lot more clunky. Instead of taking you with them to the different timelines, they actually just have her stand in one spot throughout a whole episode, and it just cuts back to her remembering things, and it would have been cool to go in with her. The book just flows a lot better in that kind of way. I don't think the flashbacks reoccurring in the TV show, like having a whole episode about a flashback, really works. I just don't really see the point of that. It would have just been good to go back in time with her. There's also a moment in the book where the time jumps are explained. Again, when I say time jumps, I just mean her remembering and going back in time, but it's not really obviously a time travel book, just so I make that clear. But they did refer to it in an interesting way that kind of gives you a huge payoff as to why they're going back and forth. She says the way those old memories kept bubbling up to the surface in the present tense was disturbing. It was as if the past never died. In some level of time's great tower, everything was still happening. I thought that was a great explanation, and it just really gives you an idea of the mood of the book. I think in terms of structure and timelines, the main thing that seemed to change is the feel of the story. The other part is there is a key difference in the structure with the bond between Lisey and her sisters. As I said, Lisey's sister kicks off the hunt in the show, but her sisters also appear in more of the show than in the book, even though there's one less of them in the TV show. And in points, the intent even seems to become about the importance of their relationship, where in the book it is stated several times that they dislike each other. Speaking of relationships, the one between Lisey and Scott is so strange in both the book and the TV show. But in the TV show, I put it down to a lack of chemistry. And in fact, I'm gonna say this once because it's a big opinion that I have about maybe why I'm not the biggest fan, spoiler alert, of the book and the TV show. This is totally a me problem, and there is a purpose, but the whole idea that it's called Lisey's story and you think it's, you know, Julianne Moore, going through this epic battle in her mind about her husband who's passed away. The whole thing is about her husband. And I don't know. I guess I was expecting it to be more about her and her, battling with that. And this is the same as in the book and in the movie. And in the book, it even opens up with saying, to the public eye, the spouses of well-known writers are all but invisible, and no one knew this better than Lisey Landon. And then it continues to tell you the story of Scott Landon and his life, even though he has passed away. I mean, that's just preconceived notions on my part for sure, but it's something about it rubbed me the wrong way. I was hoping to hear the story because it is through her eyes, but it's not really her story. Although this is true for both the book and the TV show is able to dig into Julianne Moore's performance more and shows her reaction and her arc visually. There's also just some great touching moments and some montages of them together, which makes them more of a lovey couple in the TV show, where in the book, they really show you the downs of the relationship. At one point, she refers to their love life as one ugly after another. And she also says that their relationship at times she felt was over. And this is just so different to the series where you feel like there were soulmates the whole time. Stephen King might have wanted to simplify their relationship just because of runtime. For me, this is where the TV show really shines, but it's very interesting the key differences. In the book, Jim Dooley is seen as one of the main villains. He is the evil man who's after the unpublished work of Scott Landon, and at one point he says to Lisey in the book, "But I will say, I've come to like your spunk in the short time I've known you, and I want to say I will let you go as easy as I can, because I don't want to break that little spirit of yours." Which is interesting because in the TV show, he is seen as a straightforward villain who doesn't see Lisey as even human, more of an extension of her husband. She gets called Yoko a lot in both the book and the TV show. But we do see another side. There's some incredibly chilling scenes with Dooley in his home filming himself, which gives off a Bjork crazed fan kind of feel, if you know what I mean. It also adds an extra layer of terror to his character. And same goes with Andrew Landon, the father of Scott, who is played by Michael Pitt. Although he has more of a detailed background in the book, watching the way he holds himself in the show is unnerving, and it creates a sense of physical danger. The show feels a lot more like a horror because of how terrifying the villains are, while in the book, they're more of a side plot. I was honestly very surprised when I read the book because I had heard such good things, and knowing it's Stephen King's favorite book that he's ever written, I had high expectations, I guess I would say. But then when I learned that he wrote the teleplay himself, it made sense as to why they actually are very similar. There's a lot of small minor changes to the elements and characters. I have about 40 really minor changes listed in my notes, but they don't really change any of the key points of the story. More like, why did they use a pizza cutter as a weapon instead of a can opener? I'll never understand why they switched that. The book is rated 3.7 out of 5 on Goodreads. A lot of people do love it, and the TV series currently is rated 5.9 out of 10 on IMDb. My personal opinion is I didn't really overwhelmingly connect to either, and so this is going to be quite unpopular, I think, because I'm not a big fan of the book. I thought the book was okay, but I didn't really connect to the characters or the intent of the book. Obviously, it's very personal to Stephen King, and we've talked about that, so I understand why it's his favorite, and it comes from a reflection of his life. So yeah, it's just not really my kind of style, but I can appreciate what it was. To be honest, I didn't think this would happen, but as the TV show went on, I started liking it a lot more and started really getting drawn in, not by the characters as in connecting to them, but because of the villains. I absolutely loved them. I thought it was a really dark and gruesome show and very unexpected, and for that it had me on the edge of my seat at times, I have to say. It definitely took a turn after episode 5, so I was quite surprised by that, especially with all of the feedback. I also appreciated the ending in the TV show a little bit more. A lot more was explained, and I'm not sure whether it's Stephen King having a couple more years and adding on a few elements that he can reflect on and wish wish that he added onto the book, maybe not. But then also, I feel like it could be because of the nature of a TV series coming to the end where they just want to wrap up some different things, and they probably have different formulas where they need to tie up those loose endings. Where, as I said before, the book is a free-flowing work of imagination, so he never really feels the need to have to tie that up. But I can totally understand why the TV series was so averagely received by audiences, and I believe it has to do with the medium and the source material. After all, the book is about an author who goes to a fantasy land to get his inspiration and hide from his demons. And of course, the idea of it being a book itself while reading a book is kind of meta. It's like you keep dipping into the inspiration for the book itself and its own existence. So it's pretty cool when you think of it that way. It also is all about inspiration, fantasy, and imagination. So it's really up to you. Obviously, when you read a book, a lot of it is imagination and you creating your own idea of what things look like. So it's really up to you about what transpires, which is what the whole book is about. Where in the show, the visuals, although beautiful, reveal that there is only one way to look at the story. And because it's riddled in this fantasy that has no bounds, constraints, or really any foundation, it's a bit hard to split that into an even 8 sections. It's too much of a free flowing thought. Maybe it would have been better for someone like David Lynch, who's really good at going in and out of surrealism, and you don't really know what's real or really question it. It's just Lynchian. If you do need a number from me of what I would rate them, I'd rate the book a 5 out of 10, just not for me, and I'd rate the TV show a 6 out of 10. I liked it a little bit more because I liked the performances and also the visuals. It's just a really, really dark show, especially when they do the childhood portions. I really enjoyed that. I would love if they plucked that out and did a movie on that. I thought it was so creepy and amazing. Anyway, that is what I thought of the TV show versus the book. Have you read it? Have you seen it? I can't wait to see all of your thoughts in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. I did a lot of research, 30 hours. You should see my notes. And it was just really interesting to kind of stack them up against each other and realize, because Stephen King did both, that there weren't these major differences that always come up with adaptations. I hope you're having a fantastic day. If you'd like to subscribe, I'd love to have you here. I talk about horror movies and thrillers every single week, so please subscribe and hit that bell if you want to be notified. And I'll talk to you all very soon. Stay safe and stay spooky. Bye, friends.